welcome to the Sugar and Spikes podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs, side hustlers, and anyone ready to uplevel their career in their own damn way. I'm Des. I'm a life coach for women who get that having it all sometimes means having to balance the good and the bad, the sugar and the spikes, and all the in-between.
And I'm Tammy. I'm a compassionate yet BS-free therapist, and I work with clients to help them build skills to lead kick-ass lives.
Between the two of us, we have 4 master's degrees and thousands of hours helping people develop balance, confidence, and clarity on their terms. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sugar and Spikes podcast. I'm Des, your resident life and business coach for emerging leaders, entrepreneurs, and general badasses.
And I'm Tammy, a therapist to anyone.
She doesn't discriminate.
I don't. I'm so inclusive.
I'm a little selective. Okay, so I don't even know how to start with today. It was just
we were trying to figure out what to talk about today. And I think sometimes we overthink it. So sometimes we pull cards and we're like, let's just talk about that.
And then the cards failed us today.
Oh, so failed. Oh my gosh, so much.
Okay, so what were the 2 topics you pulled?
So the ones I pulled were friendliness and good things to come.
So the thing with the good things to come is that was kind of my card mantra for the month, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, so like seeing things through, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can think about it in another way. I don't like it worded this way,
Yeah.
but I think about like willingness to go with the flow, to not exist, flexibility, not resist what is happening, right? To accept what is happening.
And then I got playfulness, manifestation, and then authenticity. And guys, we're going to throw authenticity away because we did an episode on that
already.
So if you want to know about authenticity, listen to the episode about authenticity and leave us a review, an authentic review about our episode on authenticity. It's as simple as that.
That's such a good plan.
And then come back and listen to this episode, which is about the 2 topics that Tammy mentioned that I've heard twice now and can't remember.
Oh, nope, that wasn't even right.
Nope,
Yours is playfulness.
Yep.
So obviously we're going to talk about playfulness, but mine is friendliness, which, you know, I agree. Be nice.
No one wants to play with a dick. Wait.
Right.
I
mean, maybe.
It's up to you. No judgment. I was going to say no one wants to play with an asshole, but no judgment. No one wants to play with someone that's mean.
Well, the thing I thought about friendliness is that when things are tough, you can do kind of like think about something that brings you a lot of joy and that helps you bring kind of like a small smile to your face, which helps relax your face and it relaxes your shoulders.
It relaxes everything, all the things.
And people have a different reaction to you too. And so that can be really helpful in helping your day to go better. But that is literally all I have to say about that topic. And what did that take? Like a minute?
What's your other card?
Oh, friendliness.
I feel like we're playing Grow Fish. We just talked about friendliness. What was the other thing?
No, good things to come.
Jesus Christ.
We're a little off today. That's okay.
Welcome to Behind the Velvet Curtain of Sugar and Spikes. I'm Des. I'll be your host this evening.
I refuse to participate.
We're going old school. I'm just going to talk at you guys.
Here we go.
So my cards were playfulness and manifestation, which funny thing is okay. I'm not getting into details about how I have 2 manifestation cards, but I have 2 manifestation cards from this deck.
What does that even mean?
It means I have this sitting at my desk.
Okay, you sure do.
And
manifestation, it's right there.
And I pulled this card. Do you want to get a picture for our listeners?
Oh my goodness, they're the same.
Yep.
Okay.
Mama's 2 manifestation cards.
Here we go. Pick. All right.
Does that mean like I'm ultra manifesting shit?
You totally are.
I really hope it means
like
I'm ultra manifesting shit.
Like the law of attraction.
So okay.
I can't even say that with a straight face.
Recently,
oh my goodness.
The hubby and I have been talking about, let's go with escape plans.
Okay.
We'll call them escape plans.
Alternative possibilities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, I've done my due diligence, you guys. I've put in the work. I've taken the inspired action. And like, one thing that I've come up against is, at what point does holding the faith turn into stubbornness? And at what point does stubbornness turn into insanity? And all of these things.
Oh my gosh, so many questions.
And I've had this one, like, very specific financial goal. And I think Tammy knows it. I know the husband knows it. Like, it's my password to my computer. It's a very specific thing. And it was designed essentially for me to throw it into the face of someone.
Okay.
So I guess maybe if we want to get super woo, the fact that it had like this negative energy behind it is something. But I've held this vision for 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
And it's not looking like it's actually going to happen. And I was talking with the husband last week, and I was like, having a goal is one thing. And then it's really like, how the hell are we going to get to this goal? And not necessarily in a numeric value, not in the, I will receive this much, because that's bullshit. Like, it's bullshit.
Okay. Go back and listen to our thing on law of attraction.
Like,
just saying.
If you keep saying I'm going to make X amount this month for 12 months, you'll probably end up doing it, but it's because it took you a year, not a month.
Fair enough.
Like, that's the thing.
Sure.
So I was talking with the husband, and I was like, having a goal is one thing. And then having a thing and then a step-by-step is a completely different thing. And he was like, yeah, your law of attraction password isn't working out, is it?
Thank you. I agree.
Like, yeah, but I still can't give it
Your
up.
password is incorrect. You have 2 tries left.
Still lets me in. So on manifestation.
No. Let's talk about playfulness. I don't want to talk about manifestation. Boo.
But that's what my whole intro was about.
No.
The fact that, I think, okay, before we get into playfulness, my recent sentiment on manifestation.
Okay, fair enough. Fine.
My recent sentiment.
Fine.
Is you can manifest anything if you keep fucking going, and at that point, it's just stubbornness.
That's true.
At that point, you're playing against the law of probability, not the law of attraction. That is a soundbite for the world to hear. Probability versus attraction.
Yes.
Probability will live out.
I mean, there's something to be said that for happiness not being some sort of elusive thing, but something that can be really accessible depending on your daily practice.
Right.
Right? If you practice gratitude, if you practice positive psychology, then happiness is more apt to come to you than maybe somebody who focuses on negative or focuses on lack, right?
Right. And positive psychology is not crap. Like, positive psychology is good shit.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I'm very open. If you follow me on Instagram and everything, like, I have recently, I've shifted to 3 key questions that I address every morning, which is I'm thankful for. Mm-hmm. And I hit at least 20 things where I list out gratitude.
Positive psychology.
Positive psychology. Every single day, I'm things I'm excited for.
Okay.
Positive psychology.
Yep.
And then the third question is things I choose to know and believe.
Okay.
Positive psychology. I'm not saying positive psychology is bullshit.
No.
It's good shit.
I mean, and even in terms of manifestation, right? Our thoughts shape our reality.
Yes.
The more positivity, the more we think in positivity, the more we see positivity versus the more we think and see abundance, right?
Well, versus, finds right?
Right. Versus the way, if we think in negativity, we see negativity and we experience lack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Well, it's just let's take today, for example, where if I was going to view it through a positive lens, we had no idea what we were going to talk about. We found a thing and we rolled with it, and it was great, and it was organic and fabulous and super free-flowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I wanted to think about it in negative terms, we had no idea what we were going to talk about. It sounded like us rambling for 20 minutes, and that was it, and it was stupid.
Okay.
The fuck? things are what they are, and it depends on the lens that you use.
Yeah, because we enforce those mental patterns, right? Repetitive thought process become ingrained in us, and they become habits. So if we habitually see lack and negativity and want, that's going to be the lens that we see the world through.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, I agree.
And the thing with playfulness, as a non sequitur,
Okay.
is, and I actually saw this on Facebook earlier, and it was something that I was thinking about, is the idea of like not having to do something but getting to do something.
Okay.
And I feel like that's kind of one of those ultimate shifts in terms of positive psychology, because then everything becomes either a fucking game or a fucking privilege, and that's really awesome. Like, I don't have to...
So it's like an opportunity.
Like, I don't have to go for a 3-mile run. I don't have to do it. I get to go for a 3-mile run today. That's awesome.
So it is an opportunity. It's like seeing opportunity in everywhere you can.
Like, I don't have to interview anyone for a podcast today. I get to interview. I don't have to record this bullshit. I get to do it.
I know. I think it speaks to the power of perspective, like, so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so easy when things become standardized to take it for granted. Like, I think in terms of running a business or leading like a team, like, you forget the things that may not actually work. Like, I think in terms of like a corporate team where people are doing their jobs and everything, and then something doesn't go quite right, but like, you have all these other things that are flowing and you don't have to think about it. So yeah, you maybe like there's an opportunity for correction, and that's because there are so many other things going on.
I agree. You know, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? There can be one area where we need to correct and make adjustments and do better, but the rest of it may be pretty fucking great. Yeah. But that's more about how we see things, right? Which is seeing things more on a spectrum, more on a continuum, rather than everything's awful, everything's great. It may be that some things are freaking amazing and they're going so well, and here's ways we can tweak things to make things even better than they were before, and to pick up the slack in areas that may be faltering.
And okay, so while we're on this topic of perspective and binaries and scales, can I speak to something that I've been wrestling with?
Of course you can.
Okay.
Always.
So I was on the internet, as so many of these podcasts are.
Surprise.
Gasp.
Oh my goodness. You were on the internet?
So my ultimate beef comes down to critical thinking. But someone posted, like, I got off of synthetic hormones and birth control, and it, like, leaving those things behind saved my life, and it was so great.
Okay.
Anyone else feel the same way? Like, clearly looking for affirmation
Support.
behind. Yes.
Yeah.
And I saw what was going on, and my experience has been completely opposite.
Yeah, it has.
Like, you've known me for a long time.
I have.
You can speak to the fact that
it hasn't been a party.
Mama needs her birth control pills. Like, her, like, non-named 50s, like 1950s housewife status birth control pills.
Yeah, totally.
If they help me, it's good shit.
Yeah.
And so, like, this person was getting all this positive feedback, and I was like, funny, my experience has been completely opposite. That's the really cool thing with bodies, is that we all respond completely different.
In our own way, right?
Homegirl is like, oh, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff, on all the people that are supporting her, does not, like, affirm my sentiment, does not recognize my sentiment, does not...
Just ignores it completely.
Like, full ignoring the fact that an experience is different. And I was just going through the situation yesterday. I was like, has humanity lost their thought or capability? Like, have we lost our capability to think critically about things, and that they're, like, binaries don't have to be anything?
Well, the thing is it's not a zero-sum game, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like her experience was that birth control was super important and saved her life, and your experience was that the opposite, right? Or do I have it reversed?
She was not a fan, and I'm a big fan.
Okay, so no fan, right? But it's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
It's not as if she validates your opinion, that suddenly everything about hers is not valid, not true, not not okay.
And
it's somewhere in between.
I explicitly formulated my response to be that. I was like, that's the cool thing about bodies is we all I was like, no body responds the same way.
Right? I know.
Like, that was a really easy meet me halfway type of thing.
I know, but that can be really threatening for some folks, because if you think in black and white terms, right, then your post was incredibly threatening to her perspective and point of view. Almost as if she says something about what you said, it totally invalidates and kind of pushes aside her experience, when really both experiences can be true and there's room for both.
Yeah.
Or even more than both. There's room for all kinds of experiences, right?
Which is what I'm like, there's room for everything. And why are we trying to get these bandwagons? And I was thinking about it, it's like, is that why my following is a bit less engaged then? Is that why all of these things that I've kind of been dealing with lately, is that like, I feel like my voice isn't polarizing because I'm like, we live in the gray and there's room for everybody, and let's pause and give space because,
well, I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because polarizing views are comforting in some ways, right?
i.e. Trump. Like,
yeah.
Like, let's acknowledge, like, his view, ultra polarizing. There's a Trump camp and a not Trump camp. I have not met anybody that's like, Trump, take him or leave him. I don't care.
Right. It's so true. I mean, it's very comforting in a sense to be in this camp or that camp, right? One or two, A or B. I think when you muddy the waters, so to speak, with like, hey, there's an infinite number of possibilities between A and B. There's like A1, A2, A3, A4, and there's B1, B2, B3, B4. Everybody's
Version
like,
1.2,
oh
1.3.
my God, that's so confusing, and I just can't deal with it, because like when we feel ambiguous about things, or we feel uncertain about things, that can generate quite a lot of anxiety for people, right? So in an effort to cut down on that anxiety, I could see people like saying, okay, I'm in camp A and that's it and that's all, because that helps me make sense of the world. It helps me reduce my anxiety with all this ambiguity, right? And so I can see that being really comforting for people to say, well, here's the solution A, or here's the experience A, and that helps me make sense of the world, basically. It's not as messy, right? I think from my personal perspective, and I think your perspective too, it's more messy than that, but messy can be really uncomfortable for people, right?
But for leaders, like, and I guess this is the perspective that I interact with the world with, and this is how I show up on social media, and kind of the level that I expect folks who are within my circle, and like, this is going to sound ridiculous, but if I deem you decent enough to interact with on social media, then operate at this goddamn level.
And I assume you have the same perspective as me?
No, not necessarily perspective, but ability to take.
Oh, okay.
Like, you're at the same, like, level of human functioning.
Like, maybe you don't have my perspective, but you have the ability to accept and hold multiple perspectives.
To have a conversation. Like, if I engage in a conversation with you, then I deem you at the level to engage and have a conversation with me. And I think the thing is like, those people are like leaders in the industry and leaders that have a very strong following, and not being able to really like step up and speak to that, I feel like is doing a really big disservice to kind of like who your following is
Mm-hmm.
and to like what you're about. Like I wasn't even expecting like homegirl to come on board with it, like to say, oh, that's a really good point. It would like, hell, it's the internet, right? Like she could be like, well, it's because of X, Y, and Z, and you can really try these essential oils and it'll all be the same.
Or, well, you're wrong.
But like leaving something hanging in the air when you claim to be a voice as a leader is bullshit.
Sure.
Don't show up with a strong voice or perspective, and then when you're, I don't even want to say challenged. Like, I feel like there's a word that's not challenged.
It's not even challenging. It's just like, hey, have you maybe considered that there's other people? Like, gently.
Don't go quiet.
Like, there's gently considering, like, hey, other people might have a different experience. Like
that's...
But in a gentle way. Like, I experienced, like, petting a dog or, like, you know, like this, oh, honey, have you considered this?
Like, you're not a leader if you're just telling people that X, Y, and Z is the correct path. At that point, you're a dictator.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to think about leaders in this really one-dimensional way, right? Like the way I think about effective leadership is the ability to take in multiple perspectives and to hold all of those together and then determine what's the best for the group.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, guys. I'm just like, so popular.
I know you so are. So, I mean, in that sense, right, like, because you're talking about high emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I think about...
which is a quintessential element for leadership, right? Is to be able to read the fucking room.
Yeah. How many times have we said that to each other? Right? So it's the ability to be aware of, to control and express your own emotions, but to handle these interpersonal relationships empathetically and with respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like leaders, the thing is like leaders get people who may not necessarily agree to follow them.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus like
because you can manage, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off, but to manage your own emotions and the emotions of others at the same time.
Like that's what sets people apart. And that's what's like recently driven me crazy about the online world, is because there are people that are like, I'm on board 100%. And then when people are like, I don't necessarily agree. Like, you don't need to have everybody like you, but manage your crew so they fucking follow you.
Yeah. So there's
like you're
kind
leaving
of like
things at the table.
Right. So there's like 3 kind of skills kind of broken down into emotional intelligence. So there's like emotional awareness. Are you even aware of how the room is feeling? Can you even read the room? Right.
Yeah. And the room is not one temperature.
No.
Like the room is not 120 degrees. It's probably like 90, 50. Like it's like read the room for nuance.
And then to manage everything that's going on, right? And then to regulate your own emotion, which can result in heightening people's energy or lowering people's energy to kind of come more into harmony with your own, right? So you have awareness, management, and then your own management to be able to regulate up or down depending on how you read the room.
And so let's not get this confused with having everybody like you.
No. It's not about having everybody like you. No.
Like, people aren't going to like you. People are going to love you. All these things. But
one thing I want to say is that I'm sorry, because I like to be liked.
We all like to be liked.
So it's hard for me when people don't like me. I'm like, why don't you like me? I don't understand. I'm just such a likable person.
But look at these references. These people like me.
But the fact is, not everyone's going to like you. And that can be a very uncomfortable experience.
Like,
that's all I wanted to say.
It's not about having everybody like you. It's about giving space for people to grow in your direction.
Yeah.
Like,
or in their own direction and being like, hey, that's valid too.
Yeah. I think that there's this very big take it or leave it approach going on online.
Well, that's a very black and white approach, right?
And it's pissed me off lately.
You're over it.
And I'm done with it. I'm like, yes, we can all have different perspectives on things.
Mm-hmm.
And let's like fight for the common good, because no matter how nuanced our perspectives are, there's 2 or 3 things that can be agreed upon, right?
Sure, you can find common ground.
Yeah. And
if you really want to.
And not allowing for common ground. I think that's where the situation really upset me. And I'm sure this person would be like, well, you need to look at like yourself or why you're so triggered around this, which is like, whatever. But like, I don't know. It's just, if you want to do more, then bring in sales. If you want to do more, then be a goddamn mid-level manager in your own business. It's about inspiring other people and connecting with other people that don't have the same worldview and perspective as you do.
Right, like it's inspiring them too, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about making those human connections.
Yeah.
I think that the thing that gets lost with like MBAs, you and I both have an MBA, but I think you would agree with me that MBA didn't teach you how to connect with people.
Oh, fuck no.
How to manage people.
Yeah, no.
It more is like about businesses is this kind of nebulous concept.
Yeah.
Right? But like psychology, of course, I'm a therapist, so I'm all about psychology.
I feel like in 50 states I can call myself a psychologist.
That's all the states.
It's 48.
But psychology teaches us about connection and how important connection is, right? Yeah. Like even about therapy, I think we said this like a million times. Connection with your client really determines gains, right? So the more connected you are, you could have the most brilliant interventions in the world.
Yeah.
Like you could do, like you and I could do the exact same thing, but if I'm more connected to the client than you, I'm going to get better results, and vice versa, right?
That's the thing. Like, is this loss of connection when challenged? Because I'll say this person that posted, like, I've spent a somewhat significant amount for one of their trainings.
Okay.
And to be not acknowledged in something was kind of bullshit. It kind of pissed me off.
Kind of a painful experience.
I wouldn't say painful, just like...
Yeah, but we all know anger is an umbrella.
Shut up. Like, fucking acknowledge it. Like, just acknowledge it. So that's all I'm looking for.
So you were hurt, right? You felt unacknowledged.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I can't help it. It's my thing.
But like, and the thing is like, people put so much energy and emotion behind something like that, and it really is it's that simple. Like, it's saying, oh, you said X, Y, and Z. Huh. And leaving it at that. Like, if this person had said, fascinating, one goddamn word, I don't think this podcast would exist right now. Like, not necessarily controlling, but guiding people is much easier than we think it is.
Sure.
Like, shepherding them into like feels and emotions and things like that, into like developing this relationship, so much easier than we actually think it is.
Sure. So guidance I think of as a skill of like letting them lead and you leading at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? So it's that and, which sounds kind of confusing, but it's like this dichotomy of I'm leading and you're leading too. And that results in guidance on both parts.
Well, and that's where the skill comes in, right?
Absolutely.
Like, that's what separates the people that know what they're doing versus the people that don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
It's okay. Like, you can have that opinion.
Well, like, I think, like, Tammy and I, right? Like, this podcast, we're a duo, and we're both co-hosts, we're both equal, and we both, like, step up and guide a bit, and then the other one guides a bit, and all of that stuff, and there's no fight. But if either of us were less secure in our knowledge or place, or if there was any sort of doubt or
when there's dysfunction of some kind.
anything like that, it would become very apparent very fast in the one person owns an episode, one person, like, it becomes very clear in this unequal interaction.
I think what you're trying to say, and I could be wrong, but I think what you're saying is the power struggle becomes really obvious.
Yes.
And the fact that it becomes a power struggle speaks to the fact that there's no kind of equity in leading and following. Some person feels led all the time. One person feels followed all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know. I feel it, and that's so much of what the entrepreneur world is kind of built on, at least online. In terms of like, I've done X, Y, and Z. Pay for this program to do X, Y, and Z because I've done it and I know what's going on. And then suddenly you're interacting with these people that have done one thing and are like truly like, don't care how much people defend it, like say that they're not, but are truly clinging to the I've done this and this is what I know.
Well,
God help me if anybody challenges me.
I think that's really unfortunate because, coming from a scientific background, you're talking about somebody who has anecdotal evidence at worst and an N of 1 at best.
Yeah.
Right? So with an N of 1, what are you really going to learn?
Well,
it's not that you won't find people that also it can work for. Oh, you absolutely can.
You're playing with probability at that point.
You are. It's true. And for me, coming from a scientific point of view, I'm like, so it worked for you. Just you. Only you. There's no evidence to suggest that it might work for others.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's like rolling the dice, right? And just seeing what happens.
Well, and what these people sell is like, well, you just need 3 to 5 testimonials. You do whatever it is you do with like enough people, you're going to get 3 to 5 fucking testimonials.
Okay, well, testimonials are anecdotal evidence.
We should do a whole episode about why testimonials are bullshit.
We certainly can.
Oh my God. So Donald Miller
Should we do an episode about research methods?
Yes. So Donald Miller in his podcast Story Brand did a whole thing about why testimonials are like awful.
Right?
They're awful. And one of like the things that people bank all their shit on, and like they work, like it's just it's so bad and
yes, and
yeah,
all the things.
Like I found myself losing sleep because of the testimonials, and I'm like, and they're bullshit,
right? I know.
I don't know. All this is to say.
But I mean, if you think about how many people are on the planet, what is it, like 7 billion?
So you're going to find people that connect with it.
So there are odds that you are going to find people, and that doesn't make it scientifically valid or evidence-based or whatever you want to call it, right? But me as a therapist, I go with evidence-based things, right? Because I come from a scientific background. That's how I'm educated. That's what I support. And so that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that will work.
Yeah.
It just means that like we have to be cautious.
Well, and that's why with clients, like, so every single client that I work with, we do a personality assessment, which is we use an evidence-based personality assessment for business leaders.
Okay.
And then we work together to get an understanding of where they are, and then using evidence-based strategies and interventions, like
things we know that work, right? That have an N of more than 1.
And there are some people that are like, well, I'm a trailblazer. I'm like, I don't care what methodology you're saying to use. Like, I don't fucking care if you're like, well, I'm a trailblazer and that I use Snapchat and X, Y, and Z. You're doing one thing that is evidence-based. I guarantee it.
I mean, I get people wanting to blaze trails. I just have to wonder, with 7 billion people, do I even have that right? The idea of
someone will tell
trailblazing
us
is somewhat limited, right? I'm all for adjusting things to fit you.
Yeah.
Right? That's the idea of, without sounding too technical, like the local clinical scientist, right? Like you take things that are evidence-based on a wider population and you say, how does this fit with the people that I work with here? And how can I adjust it to work?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the things don't work.
Or that they do.
Or that they do.
Like, I don't know. It's just, it's cautious optimism.
Yeah.
Paired with this idea of like, I don't know. It's cautious optimism paired with a goddamn get rich quick scheme. And that's what pisses me off in the online world. Is because people are selling like these dreams, and it's like for every person that says 5 years later, look what I've built, how many people haven't built that?
I mean, think about it though. There's so much certainty in that, right? Like we as humans want certainty. Like ambiguity is uncomfortable to us. And trust me, I know, like grad school for psychology is all built on
manage your ambiguity.
It's such a statement, right? Like it's almost like a mantra, but it's true. Like it's a really hard thing to manage. It generates a lot of anxiety. We don't like it as a general rule.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. And yet that's where growth happens, right? It's not just doing the same thing every time. But learning how to manage that, that's where growth happens. Yeah. I agree.
The question I want to ask is like, why aren't people talking about it? But I'm like, it's because it's not sexy and cute.
It isn't sexy and cute, right? It's sexy.
Hard.
It's sexy and cute to say, here's this definite way. If you do A, B, C,
and here's how to,
you'll make $1 million.
And this will be your guidance for all of the things.
There's certainty in that, right? We want certainty. We as humans want certainty. Who doesn't? Like that's a totally normal thing to want. Only life isn't built that way. And so I think we easily buy into the idea like, oh, this is a sure thing. Oh, this is a totally certain thing. And then when it doesn't work for us, it's like, oh my goodness, what is wrong with me? Well, maybe there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe it's something wrong with the method.
So one thing I want to do is I want to pick apart a like a training or a launch period of like a 5 or 6 figure launch. I think you and I would be really good at it. And I think it'd be like amazing.
That sounds exciting.
Because I've started to do it with something and I've noticed this trend and I'm like, fuck, there are 5 steps. And that's it. And that's all you have to do. And then at that point you're playing with numbers and probability, and that's bullshit and pisses me off. Like that's where I've been this week, is I've had this realization that there are a certain number of things to do. There's a certain fucking formula.
Okay.
And you're going to end up with enough people that pay in for it. And then you're going to end up with like a 10th of those people that are like, I had amazing results.
Sure.
And then grow your business. And that's bullshit. It's unethical. And just no, it's dirty.
I mean, it feels problematic on a number of levels.
So I think we should do that.
Okay, let's do it. I'm down.
Okay. So that's where we're ending this. And
we're going for it.
It's up and coming.
Yep.
All right.
It's fluid.
Yep. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, friends.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
That wraps up this episode of the Sugar and Spikes podcast. Thanks so much for listening. We'd also like to thank Forget the Whale for use of their song Move Along as our theme music. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and let the whole world know how good this shit is by leaving a review. It would mean so much. Also, don't forget to get your free stress layer training by going to DesireeW.com and clicking on Slay Your Stress. You'll also find a link to that in the show notes below. Till next time, and remember to stay unavailable for fuckery.